on Goblin Reddit. Today's story is...
My husband cheated on me while we were trying to have a baby, and 3 months later he came back begging for forgiveness when his new pregnant girlfriend found out everything. This last year has completely changed my life. My husband Ansel, 32, and I, 34, had been married for over a decade and had been trying to have a child for the last 6 years. I underwent all the fertility treatments we could afford. We were both exhausted but still determined to start a family. Each failed attempt broke me a little more, but I kept hoping that one day it would all be worth it. However, about a year ago, out of the blue, he told me he wanted to call it quits. I remember that moment with absolute clarity. I had just returned from a doctor's appointment feeling hopeful because my doctor had proposed a new treatment plan that looked promising. I went home excited to tell Ansel, and he just looked at me with an indecipherable expression. Then he dropped the news, "I don't want to continue with this." At first I laughed, thinking he was joking. We had been fighting for this for 6 years, 6 whole years, and now, out of the blue, he said he didn't want to continue. It didn't make any sense, so I asked him why, and his only answer was, "I've just changed my mind," just like that, with no further explanation. As if it were as simple as flicking a switch. As if all those years of suffering, injections, negative tests, medical visits, hopes and despairs meant absolutely nothing. He had simply changed his mind. I tried to reason with him. I asked him if something specific had happened, if he was having difficulties with the process, if he felt afraid. I even asked him if he was depressed, because I couldn't understand how someone could just wake up one day and decide that they no longer wanted what they had wanted for so many years. I begged him to at least give me a coherent explanation. But he didn't. He simply ended each conversation with the same answer. "I don't want to continue with this." For months I tried to get him to talk. I tried different strategies, being patient, showing anger, crying, ignoring him, pretending normality in the hope that he would change his mind. But nothing worked. He had completely excluded me from his thoughts, and that's when my suspicions began. What if he was hiding something from me? What if he was keeping some secret? Because none of this made sense. So I started investigating. I know, I hate being that kind of person. I never imagined I would become the wife who secretly checks her husband's phone. But I was desperate. I needed answers. One day, while he was in the shower, I examined his phone. I found nothing. Not a single suspicious message, no calls from unknown numbers, no strange emails. Just normal work stuff, messages with his mother, some memes from his friends. I felt like a terrible person for having distrusted him. And then, about a week later, I found it. I was doing the laundry when I reached into his pants pocket and pulled out a business card. At first, I didn't think anything of it, thinking it would be something to do with his work. But when I looked at it more closely, my heart stopped. It was the card of a divorce lawyer. My stomach lurched so abruptly I thought I was going to vomit. My hands trembled as I turned the card over, hoping, praying that maybe it was old or not his. Maybe there was some logical explanation. But then I had a worse thought. What if he had already contacted them? So of course I checked his phone again. This time I looked at his call history, and there it was, a call to that exact number. From a month ago, a whole month ago. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred, and I had to sit down. This man, my husband, the person with whom I had built my life, had already taken the first step to abandoning me, and I had no idea. While I cried myself to sleep at night because of the failed tests, while I clung to every shred of hope, thinking that we were in this together, he had been planning his exit. I thought that maybe there was a reasonable explanation, maybe the lawyer was an old friend, or maybe Ansel was helping someone else with their divorce. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, even though my gut was screaming at me that something was very, very wrong. So I went straight to the living room where Ansel was watching a game, card in hand, and asked him about it. At first, he played it down, saying that some guy had given it to him, but that it didn't mean anything. However, the moment I mentioned that I had seen his call history and knew that he had contacted this lawyer, his whole expression changed. The color drained from his face, and, for a split second, he looked like a cornered animal. Then, instead of answering me, he got angry and turned the situation around, accusing me of going through his phone, as if that was the real problem. That reaction told me everything. I kept pressing, asking him what was going on, telling him he deserved to know, and that's when he finally admitted it. He wanted a divorce. I don't even know how to describe what I felt at that moment. The word shock is not strong enough. I think my brain simply stopped working for a second. I had spent more than a decade building a life with this man. We had been trying for years to have a baby, going through hell together, supporting each other through disappointment after disappointment, and now he was saying he didn't want any of it. That he didn't want me. I asked him why, because nothing made sense. How do you go from desperately wanting to start a family with someone to simply deciding that you no longer love them? But that was exactly what he said. He didn't love me anymore. And then he said something that completely broke me. He told me that it was lucky we had never had a baby, because otherwise we would both be trapped in this marriage forever. I think that was the moment when I really felt my heart break. I had spent years mourning every failed attempt, every negative test, believing that we were getting through it together. I thought he was hurting too. And now he was just saying it was a positive thing, as if all those years of trying, all those nights crying together, meant absolutely nothing to him. I couldn't process it. I told him I needed time, that I needed space. I took my keys and walked out the door before completely collapsing in front of him. I don't even remember driving. I just got in the car and drove off, with no destination in mind. I just needed to be somewhere else. At some point, I ended up in a random parking lot. I turned off the engine and just sat there, clinging to the steering wheel, feeling like I couldn't breathe. And then came the tears, intense, heart-wrenching sobs, the kind that make your whole body tremble. It was as if my mind had been holding everything in until I was alone. And then, suddenly, it all came crashing down. None of this seemed real. How do you go from sharing more than a decade with someone, planning a future together, to them deciding they no longer want it? Just like that. I was struck by how indifferent he was to all this, as if he were canceling a subscription, not a 10-year marriage. This man, the same man who had supported me through some of my darkest moments, who had promised to be with me forever, was just sitting watching a game as if my existence hadn't been destroyed. I had a feeling there was more to the story. Something in the way he was acting. He was too cold, too distant. People don't just wake up one day and decide they no longer love someone, do they? There had to be something more. So I went back home. My hands were still shaking when I walked through the door. He was exactly where I had left him, sitting in the living room, watching TV as if none of this had affected him. As if he hadn't just told his wife of 10 years that he no longer loved her. I stood there for a moment, just watching him, wondering how I could ever have thought I knew this person. Then I finally spoke. I told him that I needed answers, that I deserved them. And then I asked the question that I had been too afraid to ask before. Is there someone else? I knew the answer the moment the words came out of my mouth. I didn't even need him to respond. His whole expression changed. Even so, I needed to hear it from him. I wasn't going to let him get away with vague and incomprehensible answers. And then he confessed. Yes, he had fallen in love with someone else, a new coworker. Things had progressed quickly between them. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach, but he wasn't finished. Because then, in the same expressionless tone, he informed me that this woman, this colleague he barely knew, was pregnant, that he was going to be a father with her, that he wanted to spend his life with her now. I swear, for a second, I thought I might faint. We had been trying for 6 years. 6 years of fertility treatments, suffering, loss, failure, supporting each other through the worst pain imaginable. 6 years of thinking we were in this together. And now, just like that, he was going to have a child with her. Just like that, I was throwing away everything we had built, everything we had overcome, for a woman I had known for what, a few months? I don't even remember making the decision. I just told her to leave immediately. She didn't argue. She didn't try to explain herself. She didn't even seem sorry. She just laughed. And now I'm sitting here in an empty house, writing this on Reddit because honestly, I have no idea how to process all of this. I feel like my whole life has been taken away from me, and I don't even recognize the person I thought I was married to. Help me, Reddit. How do I even begin to get over something like this? Update 1. Hi everyone. I know it's only been a day, but I feel like I've lived a lifetime in the last 24 hours. My emotions are completely out of control. One moment I feel numb, the next I feel like I'm going to explode. I could hardly sleep last night. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind just played everything over and over again, like a cruel movie I couldn't stop. I thought I had reached my limit yesterday, but apparently there was still more to endure. This morning, I received a message from one of our mutual friends. She told me that she had seen Ansel the night before. He wasn't in a hotel or staying with a friend. He had spent the night at her place. At the other woman's place. I don't even know why it affected me so deeply. Logically, I already knew that he had chosen her. He had literally told me that he was going to spend his life with her, but confirming that he had gone straight from breaking my heart to sleeping in another woman's bed, that was different. That was a new level of pain. I can't even describe what I felt at that moment. Betrayed, humiliated, furious. I think all at the same time. It was like someone had thrown ice water over me. As if my whole body was numb, but my chest was on fire. I just sat there, staring at my phone, trying to process it. And then, just when I thought my day couldn't get any worse, Ansel sent me a message. It wasn't an apology, not even an explanation. It was a simple, cold message telling me that I should get a lawyer and start the divorce proceedings as soon as possible. That was it. That was the whole message. No emotion, no regret. Just business. I don't know why I expected anything else. I guess some naive part of me thought that maybe, after a decade together, after everything we had shared, I would at least feel something. But no. Apparently he was ready to erase me from his life, as if I were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. I spent the rest of the day trying to keep it together. I didn't cry. I didn't even scream. I just sat there in silence, staring at the walls of our house, wondering how we had come to this. And then, in the afternoon, Ansel came back. I didn't expect to see him so soon. I thought he would at least wait a few days before showing up. But no, he just walked in, as if he still lived here. As if nothing had changed. He said he needed to collect some of his belongings. That was it. No small talk. No asking how I was. Straight to the point. And that's when I exploded. I had been holding back all day, trying to process, to be rational. But the moment I saw him standing there, acting like it was a normal day, something inside me broke. I started to scream. Really scream. I don't even know what I was saying half the time. I think I just wanted him to feel something. I wanted him to understand how much he had hurt me, how much he had destroyed me. I wanted to provoke some kind of reaction. But he just stood there, calm, expressionless, as if he had been waiting for this moment and had already decided that it wouldn't affect him. And then he said something that took my breath away. He told me that we were never happy. Not only that he wasn't happy, we weren't happy. As if the last 10 years of my life had been a lie. As if I had imagined all the good times, all the love, all the moments when I believed we were building something real. I can't even describe how I felt. It was as if my own memories were deceiving me. I started to question everything. Had I really been so blind? Had I been lying to myself all this time? Was our marriage just a long-term disaster, and was I the only one who didn't see it coming? I wanted to argue. I wanted to shout that he was wrong, that we were happy, that we had fought for this marriage together for years. But the words got stuck in my throat, because suddenly I wasn't sure anymore. Maybe he had been deceiving me. Maybe I had spent the last decade convincing myself that we were happy because the truth was too painful to face. I had nothing left to say after that. She took some of her things and left without looking back. I feel empty. I don't know what to do now. I don't know how to start over. I don't even know how to get out of bed tomorrow. I just know that the life I thought I had is gone. So yes, here I am. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Update 2. Hi everyone. I know I haven't posted an update in the last 2 months, but Honestly, I've just been dealing with the absolute mess that my life has become. The last time I wrote, Ansel had left, and I was trying to take it all in. Since then, I've hired a lawyer, which, by the way, is much more exhausting than I ever imagined. The whole divorce process is a nightmare. So much paperwork, so many meetings. Each one just seems to reopen a wound that has barely begun to heal. But that's not even the weird part. A few days ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't have answered, but I've been getting calls from my lawyer and I didn't want to miss anything important. The woman on the other end introduced herself as Amber. She said she knew my husband, and at that moment, I felt my stomach drop. I didn't even let her finish before telling her I had nothing to talk to her about and hanging up. I mean, what could she possibly have to say to me? I didn't need her apologies. I didn't need to hear her try to justify what she and Ansel had done. I was already past that stage. But then, a few minutes later, I received a message. It said there was something I needed to know, that it would be better if we met in person. At first, I hesitated. I didn't owe her anything, and honestly, I was tired of feeling like I was the one picking up the pieces, while Ansel could move on with his life without facing any consequences. But something in her message got through to me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe I needed to close this chapter. Maybe it was just a naive part of me that still wanted to understand how everything had gone so wrong. So I agreed to meet her. Yesterday, we met at a restaurant. I don't even know what I expected, but I definitely didn't expect Amber to be so young. She looked very young, maybe 21 or 22. Seeing her in person made my stomach churn. I kept thinking about how much older Ansel is than her, how she had been with me for 10 years, and yet she had the nerve to run away and start a new life with someone who had barely finished college. She seemed nervous. And then, before I could say anything, she confessed to me outright that she was the woman with whom Ansel had conceived a child. I told her I guessed as much. She nodded. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. She wanted to apologize to me because she had no idea that Ansel was married. At first, I just stared at her. I almost laughed. There was no way she didn't know. She worked with him. She had to have known. How could she not have known? But then she shook her head and clarified that she wasn't his coworker. I didn't understand. That was the version Ansel had given me. That was the story I had been repeating in my head for months, the one that had been keeping me awake at night. But Amber wasn't his colleague. She didn't even work in the same sector. She was a waitress in a restaurant. Ansel had visited it once. That was how they met. And when he met her, he wasn't wearing his wedding ring. He told her he had been divorced for years. I swear I felt like I was going to throw up right there in the middle of the restaurant. I don't know why this affected me more than anything else, but it did. Somehow, throughout this whole process, I still thought there was some truth to Ansel's version. Some perspective where at least he had doubted his decision. Where maybe things had just gotten out of hand. But no, he had been lying from the start. He had met her under false pretenses. He had built an entire relationship with her based on a lie. And it worked. She believed him. She trusted him. And then, like me, she was suddenly confronted with the truth. She discovered it when she saw a message on her phone from a friend asking her how the divorce was going. That was when she confronted him. That was when he finally confessed the truth. She told me that she threw him out immediately, that she wanted nothing to do with him, that she contacted me because she felt I deserved to know. I just sat there staring at her, not knowing what to say. For the first time in months, I didn't feel jealous of her. I didn't feel like she had taken anything away from me. I just felt sorry for her. She was another victim of Ansel's lies. She kept apologizing. Although I never blamed her, she was never the one who broke my marriage vows. She never betrayed me. It was all him. We talked for a while after that. I don't even remember most of the conversation. It was all just a haze of emotions. Anger, sadness, exhaustion. But when she told me she was finished with Ansel, that she wanted nothing to do with him, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Relief. Not because I wanted to get Ansel back, but because for the first time since this nightmare began, he was the one losing everything. Amber had broken up with him. She was moving on. And for the first time, I wished he would feel pain. I hoped he would feel a fraction of the pain he had put me through. I hoped he would realize that he had thrown everything away. His marriage, his reputation, his future, for nothing. After finishing our conversation, I left. I don't know what will happen next. Thanks for listening, Reddit. I'll let you know when I can. Update 3. Hi, everyone. I'm back with some updates. It's been an intense few months, and I've had a lot to process. About 3 months ago, Amber kicked Ansel out of their house, and it was one of the most difficult moments of my life. I really thought I had reached some kind of closure after that conversation with her. I honestly believed that I was finally done with this whole thing, and everyone involved. But then, just a few days after posting my last update, I got a call from Ansel. He didn't know that Amber and I had spoken. At first, I thought he was calling just about the divorce, or maybe to finalize some pending details, but no, he had something completely different to tell me. We agreed to meet in a park near our house, and I remember walking there with so many mixed emotions. Part of me felt nervous, part of me felt angry, part of me didn't even know what to expect. I tried to prepare myself for anything, but when he started talking, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He sat down, looked at me, and told me that he wasn't going to marry Amber because he still loved me. I honestly didn't know what to say. I was completely taken aback. I just looked at him for a moment, trying to process his words. He went on to say that he had simply gotten carried away with the excitement of the baby and hadn't been able to think clearly. He said that he wanted to work on our marriage and that we should keep trying for a child. I was sitting there completely perplexed. I mean, how could he think that he could just come back and act as if everything was fine, as if we could just pick up where we left off? All those months of betrayal, lies, and suffering, I thought they could be erased with a few words. I didn't even know how to respond at first, but I didn't want him to see how much his words were affecting me, so I decided to play along. I wanted to see where this was all going and perhaps get more truth out of him. So I asked, "What about the baby?" He replied that the baby would still be a part of his life, but not Amber. He assured me that he didn't love her, he loved me. I was genuinely disgusted, but I continued with the charade. I said, "But our divorce is almost finalized." Then he replied that we didn't have to sign the papers. He said we could still work things out. And it was at that moment that I realized that I was not only dealing with someone cruel, but with a man willing to lie right to my face to get what he wanted. So there I was, listening to all this, and part of me just wanted to scream, but I kept my cool. I wanted him to keep talking, to sink even deeper. I wanted to hear him admit, even if he didn't know it, how selfish and manipulative he was being. I told him I would think about it, but in my mind, I already knew exactly what I was going to do. For the next month, I acted as if I was considering getting back together. I listened to him when he called. I even responded when he asked about my feelings. I took it easy on him, but all the time I was making moves behind the scenes. I warned our landlord. I had already found a new place for myself. I had signed the divorce papers and told my lawyer categorically that I wanted the documents processed and that I did not wish to have any contact with Ansel. I felt like I was regaining control of my life, piece by piece. A couple of weeks ago, Ansel received the divorce papers. Of course, he called me immediately. I answered, and the moment I heard his voice, I told him exactly what I thought of him. He deserved to be surprised, because that's exactly what he did to me all those months. He was selfish and narcissistic. I told him that I knew it was Amber who had left him, not the other way around. He had been lying to me again, and I wasn't going to let him manipulate me anymore. I told him to sign the papers and never to contact me again. I'm not gonna lie, it felt incredibly good to finally tell him all those things. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and for the first time in months, I felt free. After that, I blocked him everywhere. Phone, social media, everything. I wanted no more contact with him, no more drama, no more games. He tried calling my family and friends, but no one listened to him. Everyone supported me. It was comforting to know that, despite all this mess, I still had people who had my back, who saw through Ansel's lies. He didn't understand it at first, though. He kept trying to contact me, but I wouldn't give in. He finally got the message, and yesterday he signed the divorce papers. What's more, Ansel had been begging Amber to take him back while he tried to reconcile with me. I found out about this from a mutual acquaintance. After Amber threw him out, he went into total desperation mode. He sent her messages, he called her, he even turned up at her house, trying to convince her that he had made a mistake. He kept saying that he regretted what had happened, that he was confused, and that he still wanted to be with her. But Amber wasn't willing to listen to him. Finally, after weeks of calls and pleas, she couldn't take it anymore and blocked him. She was simply done with him. I want to thank everyone who has supported me during this process. Your comments, advice, and encouragement have meant a lot to me. It's not easy to go through something like this, but having people to talk to, even if it's online, has been essential. So yes, that's the update. I'm starting over, and I'm ready for whatever comes next. Thanks for listening, Reddit. I'll keep you posted if anything else comes up.